10,000 Americans on the town. The next morning after the surrender, I was caught by tanks on an ammunition trail, and I was with 10 men, and I didn't know one of them. We were all separated from our units. And I walked out in front of these tanks, thoroughly expected to be shot, but obviously they didn't. Anyway, I was captured and put into the Death March of Baton, I was on it about 6-7 days. And I hadn't eaten in 9 days and walked the Death March. And talk about being tired. We were so tired. Every time we'd stop, we'd go to sleep. I remember falling asleep standing up. And when you hit the ground, of course, you wake up. And anyway, I went on through the Death March, and I did it fairly well because I was in good physical shape. But close to 10,000 men died on the Death March. If you fell out, you were killed. And you're going, walking up the road, and you hear the gunshot wounds in the back of the columns, and you know those were dead men. Went to O'Donnell, and didn't stay there very long because that was such an awful place, and a lot of men died. And I went on a work detail, and I'm one of 50 men out of 325 that survived it. And that was worse than the Death March, but you don't hear much about it because it was on such a small scale. Went to Billings prison, which saved my life. There's a naval unit in there. It had some doctors and corpsmen, and I stayed in there a year and a half. And it saved my life. A duck cave saved my life. From starvation, I had beriberi so bad. And I was swollen up with this beriberi, and the doctor gave me a duck egg. I ate this duck egg, and then I lost all that water, because beriberi is when you can't pass water, and it all goes into your system. And I lost all that water, but I was poor as a crow. When I came out from under it all, I bet I didn't weigh over 100 pounds. Got back on my feet. We got a Red Cross parcel, and I finally got back on my feet, but I didn't walk for 6 months in there. And I stayed there a year and a half, and I went on to Command One, and that's the camp that the big Gray Ray movies all about. Stayed in there 8 months, and then I went on to Japan. There's shipping the best, the ones that were able to work to Japan, and they put us all in the factories. And I went into a coal mine, and I worked the coal mine for a year. We were 2 miles underground. And it was better in Japan, though, than the Philippines, because we didn't have to put up with all the diseases, malaria fever, which was rampant, and all the different diseases that are in the tropic. I didn't see an American plane until July of 1945. We used to hear them go over at night, the D-29. And finally one day we looked up and we were topside, and I bet I counted 200 B-29. Most beautiful sight I ever saw. And we didn't react because we had the guards around us, and they didn't want us to react. They didn't approve of it anyway. But then came the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and I was only 70 miles from Hiroshima, and we were close enough to get the rumble and the concussion from the atomic bomb. And then they surrendered, and they came about very casually. The Japanese commander came in and told us we wouldn't be going down the mine that day. And that was big news, because we didn't like to go down there anyway. Anyway, then planes came over, dropped us leaflets, and told us what to do till the troops came in. And first thing it said on there that we were not to harm the Japanese, which we didn't. They were all afraid of us when we came out of the gate, and they'd run. And we finally made friends with some of them, especially the kids. And the kids used to meet us at the gate every morning, you know, and we'd give them candy and everything because they dropped us food. Americans came in planes and dropped parachuted food to us by the ton. The first thing I got into was a box of candy bars. I I ate the whole box. Got sick, of course, but that was no problem either. And because we just ate day and night, and we tried not to go to sleep because we were so happy, and we didn't want to miss anything. So we'd sleep 10 minutes, get up and eat, and smoke cigarettes. And the whole camp looked like it was on fire. You know, we were all smoking cigarettes. Anyway. Stayed in a month after the war ended, and when the troops came in, the occupation troops, and we went out and met the troops, put us on the most beautiful ship you ever saw, a Constellation hospital ship, and took us to Okinawa. And Okinawa, I flew home from Okinawa.